Hello and welcome back to another episode of RE Radar, the worldwide listened to educational real estate podcast. And if you have not yet met me, my name is Nathan Mathisen. I am your host and realtor. And on the docket for today's episode is talking about why you should or why you should not own a home. In this episode, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be going over the pros and potential cons of owning your own home. Who might be best fit for owning a home and who might be best to stay renting. First off, as I'm sure most people know, the most important part is the financial component. As we went over on the first episode of season 2, buying a home has become quite the expensive journey. The national median home sale value is hovering around $422,600. Well, here in King County, where I'm at, that price in August was $860,000. So with those numbers in mind, obviously you're going to have to be financially set in order to buy your own home. And now if you missed the last episode, I'd highly recommend you taking a look at it, as I talked with a financial advisor and we discussed, of course, the finances of buying a home heavily. Now, a quick note on that financial component. Obviously, you don't have to have all that money in cash, as there are different mortgages that you can get with different amounts of down payment. And that can range from $0 down with a VA loan for veterans to FHA, Federal Housing Administration, low down payment loans of 3.5% for those who qualify, and then of course everything in between. The down payment is something I discussed earlier in season 1 of RE Radar, where I had a mortgage loan officer on and we discussed the money component and touched on the idea of how some people believe you need to have 20% down. Well, you don't have to have 20% down. So keep in mind, however, the smaller your down payment is and the less amount of money you put up front on your home, the larger your monthly payment will be. So a small down payment leads to a large monthly payment, whereas a large down payment can lead to a smaller monthly payment. So depending on your financial situation, one of those options could be beneficial to you. And that is where talking with a mortgage broker or talking with a financial advisor can come in handy, and they can help guide you in your decision and help you make the right choice for you. Now, another potential con of owning your own home is that along with it being a big financial commitment to purchase a home, it also is simply a big financial commitment in terms of upkeep. Unlike with an apartment, when you have a landlord, you are responsible for the complete upkeep of your own home, and if something breaks, you have to either fix it yourself or find someone and pay someone to fix it for you. And now home repairs can range from relatively low cost. Let's say the average refrigerator repair job, that can be between $200 and $400, to being an extremely costly repair job, with repairing a roof being $1,200. And then let's say that repair the roof, it needs more and you actually need to replace a roof. Well, in Washington State, and this is a huge range because there's all sorts of different types of roofs, but replacing a roof could range from $8,700 up to $22,000 and way beyond that number, depending on size and material, of course. And even small things that you might not think of with having been a renter all your life, perhaps, is having to call a plumber. A plumber's costs can add up, as their hourly often will start at around $120. So the rule of thumb is really that you'll want to have set aside 1 to 4% of your home's value each year for your maintenance fund. And that's a good chunk of money, especially often with early on, you just purchased this home. You might have put all the money you had into the purchase with a high down payment. So now you've got little liquid cash, you've got a home, which in all likelihood, it's not a brand new home. So there's old components to it. And so you never know when something's going to break and you're going to have to put up a good amount of money to get it fixed. Just so that you can kind of think this through a little more with that 1 to 4%. Let's look at on a $500,000 home, make the math easy. that would recommend you set around $5,000 to $20,000 down each year for maintenance fund for potential repair work. Now, another point to make in the list of cons is that while yes, homes often are a great investment, they have been historically. They're something that go up in value. It's traditionally thought of as homes go up always. But that's not always the case. Homes can go down in value. Depending on your location and the type of home you own, you could see your home's value start going backwards. I mean, even on our radar here with some of these looks into the market, and on season one, there were a couple where the values went down year over year. I mean, you add on to the fact as well that in the national market for real estate, we've kind of been in a very interesting spot these past few years with home value increasing by 54% over the past 4 years. While I do not see home value necessarily decreasing over the next 5 years anywhere near that increase, I don't see the value of homes increasing by another 50%. Home value increases are going to start slowing down. They're going to start to flatten out. And speaking about homes in my area here in King County, home values I feel will likely increase closer to the traditional 3 to 4% each year. Now, the real reason that I believe home price values are going to start to slow down is just because of how expensive they've become and how it is really impossible for a whole lot of people to actually afford a home here in America. A home used to be something that was in reach for a majority of the population. However, now over the really just the last 4 or 5 years, that dream has become harder and harder to reach to where a lot of people, especially in my age bracket in their 20s and even in their low 30s right now, they don't see owning a home as feasible. High prices have become such a hot topic that I feel people are attempting and trying to figure out ways to combat this, and people will figure out solutions, which then will lead to the home value slowly starting to not increase as much as they have recently. The market will return to a point where a larger amount of buyers can afford a home. Now, that's of course just my prediction, and that's for my area here in King County. As King County and Seattle here is an area that is always going to draw in a crowd. People love Seattle, and that's important because cities that have less pull in terms of a city that is less desirable, I feel they could actually see their real estate value and real estate market lose value over the next couple of years. What we are dealing with today are the effects of the COVID era where loans were made extremely cheap. Everyone could afford to buy a home. So what did people do? People jacked up their home prices and they would sell. They would sell for way above even that huge list price. And values then adjusted to how people were willing to pay this amount of money. And values for homes have increased and they haven't returned back to normal since. But now with that kind of COVID era, extreme low interest rates over, interest rate spikes likely over, with Fed likely simply lowering interest rates for the next few months, I feel that the traditional non-desirable areas, and those areas are perhaps areas with geographical struggles or issues, such as natural disaster likelihoods, I believe those areas will be the ones that begin to lose value over the next few years, with people simply understanding and realizing the last 3 years were a mistake in terms of home values. Now that I've been the bearer of bad news, coming up with these cons for you, let's go with the pros for home ownership. Let's talk about the benefits. Let's talk about why everybody wants to own a home. So yes, there are those cons, mainly surrounding price and responsibility of owning a home. For me personally, I feel that the benefits outweigh those cons, and let's just jump right into those benefits. The biggest pro of home ownership is the wealth building aspect. The housing market is where America's wealth is stored. The US housing market is worth $47.5 trillion. For some people, owning a home might not be a way to necessarily build your own personal wealth, but for building generational wealth with passing that real estate asset or assets down to your kids after you pass away and giving them a leg up on their peers with owning a home and having that asset to be able to sell potentially for themselves or for them simply to already have a spot to live in. However, it also could be a way for you to build wealth through investing and then trading up that property, building your own wealth each step of the way. A house is more than likely going to be the biggest purchase of your life. Obviously, when you first buy a home, you're not going to be able to afford or you're not going to be able to get your perfect dream home. But then after owning that first home for a little while, making payments on it, building up your equity over it, and if you're in a good area with good growth, the value will increase. You can then flip that home for a better home that you previously had not been able to afford. But now you've got the assets of that first house, you can leverage that to buy your next home, and you can just repeat this process until you end up in that home you want to live in for a long time. And if you want to begin to invest in other real estate, then you can use your home equity. You can get a loan with that for essentially a down payment on a different home. And investing in real estate can be extremely lucrative and is also something, though, that's quite complex. So I'm going to eventually try to get a real estate investor on here to teach you guys here at RE Radar, the audience, a little bit about what all goes into home investment and how to become a successful investor. Now, really, a stat I want to pull up here that I feel speaks volumes on this topic and the idea of home ownership. I'll have it popped up here on the screen as well, so if you're watching, you can see this chart. This is a wealth comparison between owners and renters. In 2019, the renter's median net worth was $7,300. A homeowner in 2019's median wealth was $295,500. And it's only gotten a bigger gap. 2022, renter net worth $10,400. Homeowner $396,200. 2024, renters even went down median net worth. 10,000 flat, homeowners up 415,000. So over 40 times more median net worth for a homeowner than a renter, according to the Federal Reserve study of consumer finance. Now, aside from the financial building wealth aspect of homeownership, another huge reason to own a home is that it gives you freedom. Unlike when you're renting, this home is yours. It's yours to do whatever you want. Now, depending on your HOA or CC&R, some of this might not apply to. But in a straight home ownership where there are none of those, you don't have to check with someone to paint your house or to do different remodels and upgrades to your home. You can add that hot tub you've always wanted. You can change up the whole kitchen. You can change up the layout. You can take out a wall. You can add a story. You have the freedom to do almost whatever you want compared to when you're renting. You really can't change much. Owning a home also offers that stability. It offers stability that you can't get with renting. When you own a home and you have a mortgage, that mortgage is set. Your monthly payments are not going to change, unless, of course, you refinance. Renting, as I'm sure you're aware if you rent, that is not the case. Your landlord or the apartment management can raise that rent when you go to renew a lease. So having that stability of where that amount that you sign on the dotted line for your mortgage, it's not going to change your flat payments. They're not going to change. And that's huge as you're going to be able to plan much better and budget because your rent's not going to be changing. Or, your mortgage isn't going to be changing. Your rent, that is going to be changing. So you don't have to worry about that. And the stability can also be seen in a different way with how you are actually more likely to stay in the same spot or at least the same area when you buy a home. As you're likely not going to be moving there, especially not the next year, not the second year, maybe not even the third year. Whereas if you're renting a spot, you might move around much more frequently. For some people, that lifestyle is fine. For others, they'd much prefer the stability of staying in one spot for multiple years at a time. So to really just sum up the cons and pros, the negative of a home ownership is the high home ownership cost and the responsibility that comes with owning your own home. Now, the positives are then the potential to build wealth and generational wealth, along with the freedom that it offers you. And another actual quick pro that I forgot to mention above is the tax benefit. Actually, the tax benefit of owning a home is when you own a home, you can get up to $10,000 in house-related expenses deducted from your taxes. Yeah, those are the main pros and the main cons. Obviously, there are some others, but that's the main ones that I've got time to talk about today. And what it really comes down to simply is what each individual person's goals are in life and what their lifestyle is. And if you need help figuring that out, give me a call and I'm happy to help talk you through it. Wrapping up today, though, it's a solo episode. What does that mean? It's time to look at a random U.S. city market today. We are headed to Bandon, Oregon. Bandon, Oregon, fun fact, is the cranberry capital of Oregon. It's located on the coast. It's got a population of 3,296 as of 2024, so it is the smallest city I've looked at so far. Compared to 2020, it was 3,300, so slight decrease, tiny decrease, similar to the Michigan Hollands, very minuscule changes. Real estate wise, Bandon being a smaller city, there's not a lot that goes on. There's not a lot of market there. Overall, at the time of recording this episode, there were only 154 homes for sale. And those homes in price range from $49,000 all the way up to $12.5 million. Median list price $670,000. Median days on market 61. Bandon is a small coastal city. Inventory is low. It's not an area that has any sort of big draw aside from peaceful, quiet coastal city. And that's likely why the real estate market is slow. Since 2020, the market with median list prices hovered around that 600 to 700,000 range, so the prices aren't really changing too much. While median days on market has gone from anywhere from 20 days in a month to 114 days, depending on the time of year. Taking a look at a house on sale here so you can get a feel of the style of home and what you're getting here in Bandon. This home, I picked one right at the median list price of $650,000. You have available to you, in my opinion, this home is a beauty. It's a 2-bedroom, 3-bathroom, 1,700 square foot home. Sits on 1.5 acres. It features an updated kitchen along with updated baths. And just clicking through these images here, I feel there really isn't too much you'd be trying to change right away, so it's very move-in ready at a glance. Overall, the Bandon real estate market is a slow real estate market simply because there's not much there. And that wraps up all the time we have today. Thank you for tuning in to Season 2 of RE Radar. Once again, I'm your host and realtor, Nathan Mathisen. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'll see you again in 2 weeks. Thank you for listening and thank you for watching. Have a good one.